It is traditional for political parties to wait until after an election defeat before they have their nervous breakdown. Are the Conservatives getting theirs in early? Rachel, the Mid-Bedfordshire and Tamworth by-elections were real punishment beatings for the Conservatives. But apart from the kind of traditional excuse-making, there's no enthusiasm for Labour. Our voters just didn't turn out. The Conservatives seem determined not to hear what the electorate is saying. What lessons are they deciding to draw?
Well, I think it's mostly the excuses, actually. There is a lot of turnout was really low, so it doesn't count. It was people who were staying home and rather than switching to Labour, so it doesn't count. They're by-elections anyway, and governments always use by-elections, so it doesn't count. Those were all the lines that came out the day afterwards. But I think privately, Conservative MPs are really worried about this because they had hoped in the last year that the polls were wrong and that the swings weren't quite as great as were anticipated. So it's not that they were expecting to do really, really well in those by-elections. It's that the majorities in those by-elections were so high, 19,000 in Tamworth and nearly 25,000 in Mid-Beds, that the swing Labour needed was way more than you'd expect, even with all of those factors coming in. Now, what can they do to turn it around? The problem is they're kind of starting to realise that probably not very much unless the economy magically turns around and they can hand out lots of tax cuts and lots of free money to everyone. There are some on the right who think they need to be more Tory, and they're pointing out, and certainly Richard Tice, who's the leader of the Reform Party, Nigel Farage's UKIP successor party, pointing out that the majorities that Labour won in those by-elections were less than the vote that went to this right-wing Reform Party. And therefore, if the Conservatives were more right-wing, they could have got those votes and maybe won those seats, which sort of misses the point that they might have put off even more people on the other end, on the centrist, moderate, saner end. So, yeah, they're in trouble and they're panicking.
There's a Telegraph editorial, unsurprisingly, imploring Rishi Sunak to be bold, which is code for more tax cuts, restrict the benefits bill, all that kind of thing. This seems to be, I get the second mention of Father Ted in 10 minutes. I'm reminded of the bit, when the
I haven't seen Father Ted, I'm
there's
sorry.
A bit where the milk float is going too fast.
Father Ted?
Come on now.
You have just insulted the whole nation of the island of Ireland.
There you go.
One of the most genius bits of comedy in the 20th century.
I have seen the bit with the cow. I've seen that bit.
You've seen that bit.
I'm going to send you the box set.
There you go.
Listen from me.
Well, there's another bit where there's a milk float running out of control too fast, and they get the priests say a mass, and it makes no difference. And after trying lots of other things, one of the priests goes, "Is there anything to be said for saying another mass?" He's doing the same thing over and over again. This seems to be somewhere in the DNA of the Conservative Party. Just keep doing the same thing over and over again. You've gone very right-wing. It hasn't worked. Go still further right-wing.
Yes, but what's the alternative? To suddenly go to the centre, in which case you are going to be a less inspiring version of what Keir Starmer's already not that inspiring Labour Party is offering. I think that parties, when they're in trouble, often look to their core base, because you're going to look at the people who turn up and who are engaged rather than the people that you might want to win over. I was at both the Labour and Conservative Party conferences, and the Conservative one felt like it was taking place in a different universe because there were all of these talks going on and audiences full of people. I was on a panel and it was about, I was making the point, I was invited there to make the point that the Conservative offering over the last 13 years to young people wasn't great, and therefore millennials and Gen Z weren't too pleased with them. And I got shouted down by people in the audience who went, "I think that's absolutely outrageous. I think we've had a great offer to young people. And I think you're just talking this country down, talking this party down." And I was like, guys, you asked me to be here. Look at the polls. So I think that you get a different sort of message when you're in that kind of echo chamber. But Rishi Sunak's pitch that he now is the change candidate, 5 prime ministers in 13 years into Conservative government, hasn't really gone down too well, because you either change by offering something new and there isn't really any money to do that, or by going even more extreme right-wing and then you are exacerbating the problems that put you there in the first place.